Good afternoon to you. Mark Sott of HurricaneTrack.com. It is Monday, the 24th day of January 2022, and we have a lot to talk about, including the big headline there of a major East Coast storm in the making for the weekend. It is certainly possible. You are probably already seeing, and you're going to see, a lot more talk about that in the coming days, and rightfully so. This has the potential to be one of the biggest East Coast snowstorms and just overall disruptive storms in quite a few years. We'll take a look at the parameters surrounding that upcoming potential. It's not locked in yet. Of course, with the weather, all kinds of things can change, but it certainly is on the table, as they say, so we'll get to that. But first, let's take a look at some things related to the upcoming hurricane season, shall we? We shall. So let's start off with the anomalies map. And the Atlantic continues to be warmer than the long-term average, especially out here off the coast of Africa, and a good deal of the subtropical Atlantic as well. At least the Gulf around the edges here, the shelf water regions, has cooled off, which we would expect, considering all the cold air that we have seen drain out of Canada as of late. Here east of the Rockies, winter has been in full swing, so that cold air advection helping to cool things off just a little bit. A little bit of a cooler anomaly there off the northwest coast of Cuba, but by and large, Gulf of Mexico still running above the long-term average, and that's going to fuel these storm systems as they come across, especially the southern part of the jet stream here. Then you get northern branch energy. All that warmth in there equals energy and moisture to feed these mid-latitude storms, and we're going to talk about that more in detail in just a moment. In the meantime, and meanwhile, the La Nina still holding on here in the equatorial Pacific region. Some of these anomalies here, these purples, we're getting towards 4 degrees Celsius below average. That's just ridiculous. And just to remind you of the ENSO regions that we most monitor here, this hatched area is the Nino 3.4, and that is where most of the hurricane forecasters, such as Dr. Phil Klotzbach and his colleagues, others from different universities and private weather groups around the world, generally regard this area right through here as being sort of the sweet spot. If this is warmer than average, especially by a lot, in that El Nino category, that can have a negative impact on the hurricane season. And if it's colder than average, which is La Nina, and that's what we have now, it can enhance the hurricane season because it reduces wind shear, especially across this region through here, mostly. Gulf of Mexico is not really influenced by the state of the ENSO, ENSO, and El Nino Southern Oscillation phenomenon. The Gulf is just kind of on its own. But I'm telling you, again, this really is interesting. We'll see how this, I mean, come on, it's only late January here. This map is always a day behind. So this could look a lot different in mid-August. We'll see. But an interesting sea surface temperature anomaly look, and that includes the northwest Atlantic, where we're going to have to watch for a big coastal storm to develop. All this extra warm water up here equals more water vapor available, more energy in terms of the thermal profiles, not only of latent heat coming out of the ocean, but in the atmosphere, what we call this baroclinic process. Lots and lots of stuff to keep track of. All right, a quick look at the models here based on, or at least as they regard to El Nino or La Nina, the state of the ENSO. This one is the CFS V2. It updates every day, and each Monday that I do these updates, I'll show it to you. And it still is showing, La Nina holding on right on through October, at least the Ensemble mean. There's a few of the Ensemble individual members, like that one right there, that try to get close to El Nino, maybe even warm neutral at most. It looks like El Nino is about 0.5 Celsius or warmer as defined by the Climate Prediction Center. It just depends on who you ask. But the bottom line is a majority of the models, these different ensemble members of the CFS, the Climate Forecast System, and then the mean there, that dash line, still keeping it La Nina in that 3.4 region as we get to the heart of the hurricane season. And then we can take a look at a broader perspective. This finally updated. This is from the Climate Prediction Center's International Research Institute up at Columbia University. I believe that's where they are located. Here's where we are now. We're still in La Nina, so it should be 100%, but whatever. This covers different time spans, too. This is January, February, March, that tri-monthly average. February, March, April, and so forth. So look, here is the heart of the hurricane season now moving into not quite last place over here, if you consider this to be the farthest out in time or furthest out in time, which it is. So this is kind of last place in terms of the distance away from the current time frame. The ASO, or August, September, October time frame, has moved into sort of second place, if you will, or second to last. That's what I'm trying to say. But really, what is it showing? That's the bottom line. Neutral conditions are most likely. About a 30% chance of El Nino, and the La Nina should dwindle. And you can see that. La Nina conditions fading and neutral becoming more favorable and more favored is what I should say. So what it all boils down to, we are more than likely going to have neutral to cool neutral conditions. At least that's what it looks like now in late January. We still have quite a few months to go. But all in all, no major swings in the climate models for the state of the ENSO coming up. No signs of another raging cold event like the La Nina really solidifying and getting stronger. And no overwhelming evidence by any of the reliable guidance that we will see an overwhelming El Nino to squash the upcoming hurricane season. So we'll see. That's, again, part of the puzzle pieces that we take a look at on these weekly updates here in the off-season. Gulf of Mexico is still just warm. It's unbelievable. There's your 26 Celsius isotherm right there. Hasn't gone away. 27 still poking its way up through the Yucatan Channel. 25 Celsius, which is still upper 70s. Well, and then it shrinks away to over here. But still 24, that's warm. I think plenty of you would take 24 Celsius. That's mid 70s Fahrenheit. But up along the shelf waters around Louisiana and Alabama and Mississippi, the Mississippi Sound, over towards even Galveston and that vicinity, yes, you would expect those waters to be colder, and they are. They are shallower, easier to react quickly to changes in the atmosphere and the wind profiles. So those have cooled off in the last couple of weeks or so, especially as winter has really become locked in here in the east over the last few weeks here. Off the coast of the mid-Atlantic, etc., this area here along the Carolinas, got a pretty good temperature gradient. Warm in the Gulf Stream, cold against the shelf there, as you would expect, especially since we have had, for the first time in a few years here, some snow and sleet on the ground, and then that cold air just draining in, cold, dense air blowing across the Atlantic. If you ever open a freezer, especially a deep freezer, and you can see that cold air spilling out, that is your own homegrown version of cold air advection, the lateral or horizontal movement of air. And when you do that on a pretty large scale, such as off the continent here of North America, you tend to blow that water away. You move across a big body of water with a lot of air mass transport, and you cool that water temperature down. And that's what we're seeing off the Carolinas, as I mentioned, and certainly the mid-Atlantic right up against the shelf. But still, these water temperatures here are warmer than they should be, and in some cases by several degrees Fahrenheit. And that's going to be interesting in terms of how that plays into our upcoming storm. If we go back and look at the anomalies, where are they? There they are, and zoom into the northeast, you can see what I'm talking about. Yep, we're still seeing 3, 4, 5 degrees Fahrenheit above the long-term average surrounding the mid-Atlantic, off Nova Scotia, the Gulf of Maine, New England, Cape Cod, that vicinity. Very warm water compared to average. Believe me, it's still cold. And I mean, we can see that here. What is that? 8 degrees Celsius, and then the purple in there. 1, 2, 3, 4 degrees Celsius. We're talking just above freezing. And you think to yourself, man, who cares if it's a little bit warmer than it should be? The thermodynamics part of this is hard to explain, but every extra degree Celsius of water temperature that you add above the long-term average is just tremendous amounts of energy. Then you're starting to get into thermodynamics, and we don't have time, and I don't really have the expertise to explain the physics of that. But warmer water, every little bit matters, especially on a large scale. You won't notice it in your bathtub or your cup of coffee, if it's a 1 or 2 degrees Celsius or Fahrenheit or whatever, changeable. I mean, you might, but in the ocean it matters because there's either a lot less energy or a lot more energy with only small incremental changes in sea surface temperatures. Those can make a very big difference. All right, so moving on along to the satellite imagery here. Nice color during the day. I don't see, well, there it is. This hasn't updated in a while. Maybe Levi put something on there. Let's go back to tropical tidbits real quick. Satellite views. Does it have a note? Oh, it's running behind and images may be delayed. Well, we'll skip the satellite. That's fine. I was going to show you that there was some cold air, and yes, you can see cold air on satellite. How? Because of infrared temperatures. And that cold air made it all the way down. Just want to show you this from Hernando down in Florida. Got tagged on this tweet. I appreciate that. One of our supporters here showing the frost. And yeah, you go, well, what the heck, man? There's wintertime, supposed to be frost. But Florida, that's kind of a rare thing. So the cold air has made it down into the peninsula of Florida. And they've even talked about the iguanas that get stunned by that cold air. And they just kind of, they don't literally freeze up. I mean, I hope not. That would be terrible. But they, become kind of, not dormant, but I don't know a lot about it, but they fall out. They're just kind of like, and they let go and they fall to the ground and people think they're dead, but they're just kind of stunned. But anyway, you've had some very cold air draining down into Florida. Some of you like that because it helps to rid some of the bugs and maybe a few invasive species a little bit. There are some benefits to it, but it can cause havoc, especially for people that aren't used to it. Luckily, no widespread big-time winter weather, no sleet, freezing rain, or snow to speak of. A few areas in northern Florida saw that just a little bit in recent weeks. But anyway, cold has made it down into Florida, and as such, it's been an active period, all related to that. East of the Rockies here, very active with this broad trough carved out, cold air coming down out of Canada, more wind chill advisories now for the upper Midwest, and I saw the Weather Channel mention this on their Twitter feed. Not often do you see winter weather advisories for areas that are used to the snow, but it is needed in parts of eastern Colorado, western Kansas, because 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 inches of snow is going to be coming, and it's going to happen during the morning rush, overnight hours tonight into tomorrow. So these advisories have gone up. You all just pay attention to that out there. Just keeping you aware. Some lake effect snows and other related snow squalls in parts of the favorite snow belts coming off of our Great Lakes region. Then all this up here, I would assume this is fog and some freezing fog. Let's just click on this to see this green color. Yep, freezing fog. I thought I knew my legend. Freezing fog in parts of the region. What is freezing fog, you may ask? Just think about it real quick. You know what fog is. You can just picture that, right? Well, heck, there's a picture right there. And then if it's really cold outside, fog is just a cloud that developed where we can see it. We just call it fog. And so those water droplets are all floating around, especially at night. If you get a bright flashlight or even your iPhone flashlight or your Samsung or whatever, and you shine it, you see those water droplets floating around, and those stick to things like, my microphone here. It sticks to the mic. If it was outside, it sticks to the roadways, and that's freezing fog. And it can start to accrete and aggregate on there and grow, and it starts to look like rime ice. You get those interesting little shapes. That's freezing fog. It can collect on exposed surfaces and be a problem. So this is happening in the Pacific Northwest. Back to the main map, though. This is what I want to show you. It's quiet now, for the most part, for the east, but that's going to change. We're going to get a storm system to develop in the Northwest Gulf today, move across, bringing some inclement weather across parts of the I-10 corridor, and then that's going to eventually make its way towards the peninsula and weaken, and then this boundary is just going to hang out here, and the jet stream is going to get involved in that big baroclinic process, this temperature contrast in the atmosphere, massive amounts of energy, warm and cold air colliding, warm air and energy from the Atlantic, the cold air and energy coming down in the jet stream out of Canada. That's all going to get together and create a storm off the coast here, this Miller A, as they call it. Classic Miller A track, somewhere up along the East Coast, exactly where we know this from hurricane forecasting. You get a cone of potential tracks. We don't know what it's going to be yet. We're talking 4 or 5 days out. But it looks more likely than not that some impacts are coming now. It's just going to be a matter of how severe those impacts are and whom they will impact. I think I said that right. All right, so let's look at it on the GFS. Lots of models we could look at. I'm going to look at the operational, and then I'm going to show you a tweet here from John Castle looking at the Ensemble. So this is the 12Z GFS operational run for today. Little clipper system. Yeah, that's partly what was responsible for the snows around the Great Lakes, and then some energy coming down out of Canada, and that's going to create a little bit of a low pressure area and moisture feed to give us our snow in the Denver metro area and vicinity. And then watch this system here and watch what happens off the coast over here as we get out towards the next week or so. So let's put this into motion frame by frame. And you see a little low pressure developing in the northwest Gulf today through tonight. That brings rain, a cold rain at that, across the northern Gulf Coast. And then just enough of this sort of boundary kind of upslope flow. Understanding the microclimate of the Rockies, I'm not seasoned at it, but this big chunk of Arctic air coming down, squeezing out just enough moisture in this region that you're going to get some snow showers in the Denver metro area into western Kansas, as you can see there. And then our low goes across Florida, kind of weakens out there by Tuesday night into Wednesday. But this boundary is going to stay down here, this focusing mechanism, as this large, just massive area, and even more cold air in Canada, chunk of Arctic air comes down. The jet stream is involved. And watch what happens here, especially as we get Thursday night into Friday. That little wave sitting right there. Look at that little wavy line right there, that isobar. This is going to be the focusing mechanism somewhere in here for a surface low to develop and then get tangled up with the upper level energy, so that by Thursday into Friday, there's the cyclogenesis. A little bit of a push, more energy coming in, some from the Gulf here, kind of like the match that ignites the flame. Off we go into Friday, Saturday. Oh, look at that. Snow breaking out on the west side into the western Carolinas. Maybe Evan can put our camera up for us in the western part of the state. I'll certainly be in touch with him about that. I left one of our cameras with Evan after the 2 snowstorms ago in the western part of the Carolinas recently. But look at that. I won't say bombing out, but it's getting close to it. 995 right off of Hatteras. Windy, coastal flooding problems, you name it, for the Outer Banks. And then that rapidly deepens into the mid-980s like a Category 1 hurricane. All of these little circles in here. Let's just zoom in to the eastern U.S. Love the interactivity here of Levi's maps, Dr. Cowan's maps. So we see what happens. This is overnight Friday into Saturday morning. Heavy snow on the backside of it, potentially very windy. Coastal flooding will be a problem. And then the system really does start to take shape as a classic nor'easter. Very, very heavy snow. Interior parts of the I-95 corridor. Windy conditions. Eastern Massachusetts blasted with heavy rain, eventually snow and wind and storm surge and all kinds of problems. And even on the backside, potentially snow down into the mid-Atlantic. Then that slides up into the Gulf of Maine as a very potent, again, classic Miller A. It's just the person who came up with that idea. Southern track, where it comes up and it just rides the trough. Instead of a clipper system coming off. The Miller B track is more where you get a little feature that comes off like that. Just an example. The Miller A gets its start generally over here and then rides up somewhere near the benchmark of 40 north, 70 west. You hear that mentioned a lot for people that follow nor'easters. That benchmark is a true benchmark in terms of who gets impacted. But running this back just a little bit here for you, watch what happens. The evolution of this, very important. And 20 miles, 50 miles makes all the difference. If it's much closer to the coast, more rain for the Atlantic City, Belmar, Long Island. The farther offshore it is, more snow. and more wind, etc. This is one of those things. We're talking 138 hours. There's day 5. I mean, that's 5 days right there. That's 5 days plus. A lot can change, but I'm telling you, the signals seem to be there. Yes, it could still be 100 miles more offshore and far less impactful. We know this from tracking hurricanes, but I'm just giving you the heads up in case you didn't already know. I'm sure a lot of people are already talking about it, and rightfully so. So this is the operational. This is what it looks like in Ensemble land. Again, John Castle here tweeting about this. And this starts, let's go back here. This is the 22nd on to the 23rd, and finally today, how the ensembles are starting to lock in there and focus in, and the ensembles are important. Remember, the ensembles are more than just your operational. It's all these different versions of the operational with different variables to give you different outcomes. It gives you the what-if scenario. And this is really interesting because this is where it starts on several days ago, and this is where we end. Let's see, let's get rid of me so I can see what it shows. This is overnight last night, and this is the 12Z run today. So the 12Z run ensemble bullseye is right there, pretty close to the benchmark of 70 west, which is about right here, trying to draw a straight line, and 40 north. So right around there is the benchmark. Pretty darn close to it. That would give New England a powerful nor'easter. The ensemble guidance is showing it, meaning that a lot more than just the operational is honing in on this. It's not an outlier. It's got ensemble support. The Canadians got it. The Euro, which is just nuts extreme with it. I think it's hopefully well overdone. The 0Z Euro is just ridiculous. It was like 948 pressure in the Gulf of Maine. Like, don't even go there. 978, which is what the GFS is showing, plus or minus a few millibars, is enough. So we're going to have to watch this very closely. I'll be on top of it, and I'm going to show you a little bit about what our coverage plans would be if this comes to fruition. Real quick, storm threat today along the Gulf Coast, just marginal, not even marginal, it's just general thunderstorm risk for today in parts of Texas and Louisiana. Nothing to get too concerned about. But as that storm system slides across, the Florida Peninsula could get in on the action tomorrow. Maybe some limited thunderstorm activity, so pay attention to that if you're in the Florida Peninsula area for tomorrow. And then beyond that time frame, day 3, southern Florida, again, a little bit of instability giving us the potential for some thunderstorm activity, but no major organized severe weather expected from our friends at the Storm Prediction Center. All right, so my thoughts are, if this were to come up and reach that benchmark area roughly right around in here, and if it were to give New England a major nor'easter, I'm going to focus on probably Jersey up through eastern Massachusetts for cameras and instruments to measure wind and pressure and all that kind of stuff. Yes, I still would put some equipment farther to the south where we already have friends of our project along the Outer Banks, etc. Maybe some stuff out here. But my big thing is, and I've talked about this before, Scituate, Massachusetts. And what is it, Hummerock, that area right there, eastern Massachusetts. Let's just zoom in on it. I show you what I mean, because I need your help. I need to get in touch with some people up here. Marshfield up towards Scituate. This area right here literally sticks out like a sore thumb, and the Atlantic just blasts it with those strong northeast winds, and you get those massive waves. And I want to be able to put some of our live cameras and our GoPro cameras, 4K resolution we're talking, in these areas right on the water and show you that impact like we've never seen it before. So, if you know people on, I think it's Rebecca Road or Avenue or something like that, right in Scituate, right on the water, you got homeowners, you know homeowners, and you can put me in touch with them, do so, please. I would love to be able to put a camera, maybe if you've got a deck or a balcony. These things just hang on there, or they strap down. They're real easy, real small. They're self-powered. You know, you remember that's what we do in hurricanes. And this could be one of those events. And I've been wanting, just itching to cover that from that point-blank range. There's plenty of shots, epic shots from storm chasers and news media from further away. farther away, where you see those waves coming in, you know the ones I'm talking about. I want to put you right in it, where you hear the rocks hitting the camera. You hear the waves blasting that camera. These cameras made it through a Cat 5 Hurricane Michael. They'll make it through this. And we also want to do some testing. And I'll tell you about that more in my update tomorrow. And a little secret for you, a little something, a little surprise, something exciting coming up that I want to test. So if you know somebody in Scituate, get me in touch with them, please. Here's how you do it. You can email me, easyhermark@gmail.com. You can tag me on Twitter, send me a message on our HurricaneTrack Facebook. And don't forget, we are supported by our great community at Patreon, patreon.com/HurricaneTrack. This would probably be on par, by the way, with the most busy off-season that we have had since 2014, 2015, well before we had Patreon. So all of our current crowdfunding supporters that have been logging in and watching these streams and interacting with us. And speaking of interacting, I'm going to drop a nice thing for you here in just a second. It has been a very busy season. Now, one thing we have done is enacted and enabled Discord. It took me about a year to get used to it. We were testing it on the back end. Great back end team, suggested by several people over the last year or so. I got to know it a little bit behind on some things. I'm ahead on others, behind on, I don't know everything. It took a little bit of time for me to get to know Discord. Now it is enabled for all of our patrons. So if you've been interested in getting involved with Patreon, now's a good time, because we've got our own Discord channel and everybody can get involved and we can do the chatting there. It's just remarkable. And if you know Discord, you know. You're like, yeah, Mark, we know all about it, man. Welcome to the party. Anyhow, that's how to get up with me. Scituate, Massachusetts, that area. Would love to hear from you. You know somebody I could get in touch with. Would love to cover this potential event from front row and show it to you like you've never seen it, heard it, or experienced it before. And we can do that using the same technology that we use. Some of these cameras, we would have used them in Hurricane Ida, right there in Laplace, Frenier Landing. Bring those same cameras up and put them in a massive nor'easter. I think that would be amazing. And we can see it from an interesting perspective and immerse you in that weather. So let me hear from you if you know somebody up there. All right? All right. Well, that is it from me for today. Have a great rest of your Monday. Thanks as always for tuning in. Be sure to like, share, spread the news about this video. That helps to grow what we do. And I'll be back certainly with you more tomorrow with an update as to what lies ahead with our potential major East Coast storm for the weekend coming up.